The organizers have been kind enough to give me half an hour, but I will not strain your patience probably as long as that. I will try to be as brief as I can be. I want to speak on this. I have decided to speak on the idea of sark. I am sure the writers and the other creative people who are present here will at least like to consider some of the propositions I make seriously, because much of it is drawn from not only social science literature, but also from works of literature. The idea of South Asia is actually a bureaucratic idea. It was created after World War II, a little later than that, because already for strategic purposes, regions of the world were named differently as a collectivity. So there was Southeast Asia already, there was Far East, there was Middle East, and each of them had their distinctive political characteristics, and it helped the foreign policy makers of the Western powers to know how to deal with them strategically. The original name of this region was Jambudip, according to some, according to others Bharatvarsha, according to still others Al-Hind or Hindustan. And I do believe that these names resonate with people still, because South Asia doesn't resonate with your way of looking at the region, exactly as UP and MP. I mean, you can be a Bengali staying in Bengal. Bengal makes sense in some sense. Even West Bengal makes sense. Maharashtra staying in Maharashtra, Maharashtra makes sense. But what is UP? Yeah? It's not really a cultural identity. It is actually, you can be Banarsi, you can be Avdi, and so on and so forth. So there are different ways of looking at regions, and I propose that a much better way of looking at South Asia is to look at it not only as South Asia, but also as a cultural region where there are a number of nation states, each absolutely convinced that it is upholding values which are unique to it. Now, these nation states that have come into being are part of a larger civilizational entity. At one time we could have called it Indic civilization, but now it is not fashionable to say so, and conforming to my friends' expectations, I call it South Asia. But that's a different thing. And I also understand the reason. One of the reasons is this, that you want to resist the dominance of India as a presence in South Asia, and want to allow it to usurp the civilization initiative and equate itself to this civilization of South Asia. South Asia, in some sense, represents a civilization region, and I will come to this later on, because a civilization region has always is a mix of cultural entities. It is actually a confederation of cultures, and it is the dynamics of these different cultures interacting that gives life to a civilization. Now, there are a number of problems here. First, that civilizations do not obey the rules of nation state. Nation states in this part of the world are only 70 years old. Civilization has existed for at least 3,000 years. There is a difference between the two. And a nation state, when it dares to flout the principles of a civilization, is usually destroyed by a civilization. So if you think that you can control the civilizational entity or principles, then you are in one sense endangering the power on behalf of which you are trying to refashion the civilization. And it is not an accident that all the nation states in the region seem insecure in some way or other. This is the general principle of South Asia. And I don't think it is any different in Southeast Asia or West Asia. Indeed, it is the dominant presence of India in trying to resist which we use the word South has come partly because India, in one sense, they feel, other states in the region feel, have usurped the right to the Indic civilization. I am not saying Indian civilization, Indic civilization. There. And a part of resistance is this, that they want to define themselves differently. And now I find that these different entities that constitute South Asia, it has taken up the role of protecting or advancing the cause of certain values, mainly religion in the case of at least 3 of the countries. Now, I mean, there are a lot of people in India who think that India owes an obligation to Hinduism, and that the nation state has a special obligation to Hinduism, and it has a kind of a monopoly on the Indic civilization. But in Sri Lanka also they feel now that this is a Buddhist state upholding Buddhist values, and they have a monopoly on Buddhism. And Pakistan feels that it is a monopoly on Islam, and is advancing the case of an Islamic polity. So, even though there is another Islamic state which is larger in size, right in South Asia. Now, I am saying these things because there is an arrogance in many of our rulers that they can engineer human beings and turn them into docile, obedient citizens of the nation state they reside in. It looks as if they are succeeding all over the world with this venture. But human beings generally resist being engineered. So, in other ways, this resistance comes into play. Then they seem, for instance, that they are conforming to the norms you are setting for them and they are obedient to it. But in some ways, they remain superficial and shallow. And the result of that is this: all the states in the region feel that it is not secure. This nation state, by the way, is not very old in the West also. It is only 300 years old. It is the Treaty of Westphalia which consolidated nation states 300 years ago. There were states earlier. There were states. but they were not called nation states, and the principles of those states were different. We also had state before the British came, and even after the British came, we had a different kind of state. It was a colonial state. But we have chosen this 19th century nation state because we have the feeling that this was a clue to the magic of the West, this power, the magical power of domination which the West enjoyed. A nation state will, if our own nation state will give us protection against that. But that nation state was born in a different context, with a different set of problems and trying to attain to a different set of principles. Whereas the principles of that guided the polities which were in this part of the world were very different, because more in tune with what I am calling Indic civilization. And this anomaly is there, and it haunts the nation states. So each of the nation state feels that their countrymen or women are not sufficiently nationalistic. I mean, 10 years ago, a global survey was done by the Pew. And the survey ranked the nationalism in different countries of the world. I'm sure those who live here or come to India will be a little surprised to hear that the survey showed that Indians are by far the most nationalist country in the world. And the second most nationalist country in the world turned out to be Bangladesh. So there's quite a difference between the two. But nonetheless, you hear every day in Indian press, Indian TV, political rallies, a war cry that so many Indians are not nationalist enough. And there are always attempts to make Indians more nationalist than they are. Even being the most nationalist country in the world doesn't give you the respite. It doesn't show what our rulers think it shows. It shows that the rulers themselves are insecure, that they do not sense what is there, and they want to make it, they're insecure that this nationalism will not hold the country together because there is something shallow about it. And this sense of insecurity comes from this clash between civilizational values and the values of the nation state. Now, I would like to propose a different way of looking at South Asia, which may not please our rulers of whichever party you are talking of, either in India or in the rest of South Asia. I propose to you that if you look at it from the point of view of civilizations, every civilization has a wide multitude of strains, or streaks, if you like. Different sets of values, highly diverse cultures constitute a civilization, and their difference often is dramatic, and radical differences exist. But every civilization knows how to handle them, because the handling is through a different set of negotiations in a different way in this, at the ground level. When we think, that say for instance, if you think that a particular value in that civilization is missing in a particular sector, or within a particular culture, that value is not dead. That value is recessive and can come back. And if you think certain other values are at the moment predominant, and you can even dub the country by those values, name them by these values are predominant values in this country, but that also doesn't tell you the fact that these values may also go into recession at some time. So in a civilization context, there is this modulation of values, worldviews, visions, and also therefore a different set of complementaries arise at different points of time. So one of the ways civilizations survive, and particularly this civilization has survived with its immense diversities, what I am calling the South Asian civilization, if you like to call it, is because it has always allowed these diversities a place in a way in many other cultures and civilizations they are not allowed to go survive in that fashion. There are certain values, like whatever be the values, it can come from the nation state, from the state, or it can even come from a dominant party, or from a charismatic leader. But this society and this culture, this civilization has allowed the different cultures to interact in a creative fashion to redefine the civilization over centuries. That's the clue to its survival. So South Asia in that sense, I would say, is incomplete without any of its complement. I mean, I wish there were Pakistanis also here in this conference, but that's a different story. I don't want to go into that at the moment. Because there are, Pakistan is not a monolithic state. There are Pakistanis who resist the terrorism, who are died resisting terrorism, who are intellectually committed to democratic values. We have fought against the army dominance. The other countries of the region have an obligation, I believe, have an obligation to keep in touch with that part of Pakistan. That's an ethical responsibility to the civilization. That's the way the civilization has survived. We have a different kind of concept of enmity and friendship. That concept says.
May I raise a question, sir?
No, I'll let me finish. Enmity says, and this concept says, this concept prescribes that exactly as there is no perfect friend, there is no perfect enemy either. And in the various classical texts you will find, the heroes are heroes because they are worthy enemies and they respect that worthy enemies. Kambar spoke just before me, and I am told about that incident in Yashagana, where this the bridge had to be built by Rama to go and invade Lanka and kill his enemy Rama. But when the bridge was built, it was found that they have no means of doing a yajna to make it sustainable. It would have to have a yajna or a puja because of a foundation to ensure the longevity of the bridge or survival of the bridge. This is not Valmiki Ramana, it is Yakshagana. So, but there was no Brahmin in the region except one, and that was Ravana. They sent an invitation to Ravana to come and do it. And Ravana, though he was Rakshasa, a demon king, he nonetheless had an obligation as a Brahmin also, he was also a Brahmin, obligation to come and do the yajna. So he decided to come in disguise. But everybody knew who it was, because he was the only Brahmin in the area. But he came, performed the yajna and went back, knowing fully well that this breach will lead to the destruction of his own family, his country, and take the life of him. It will ensure the destruction of the family too. But he did it. Now this is a different concept of respect for enemies, different concept of limits of enmity and limits of friendship. Now, whatever, friendship also has its limitations. I can give many examples of this, even real life examples, but I don't have the time to go into this and get deep. I am suggesting to you that South Asia, which is at the moment going through so much of turmoil, provides a unique opportunity to every creative writer to explore our hidden, or I should say abrogated selves. What I am saying is not new. Everybody knows this, but they don't acknowledge it. That's a different thing. As a psychologist, that's my responsibility, to bring it to your awareness. I propose that the writers look at South Asia as a living, thriving, dynamic entity where little cultures, small cultures, which look insignificant, which look disposable, also have a role to play. There are hundreds of such cultures actually in each of the countries, and they too are as part of the underside, the substratum of South Asian civilization, and there are other marginalized sectors which constitute the periphery of the Indian civilization. I wish, while you talk of South Asia, you have that also in mind. Many people prefer the name Bharat for India. The origin of the Bharat is not from Bharat of Ramayana. Origin of Bharat is actually, Arindam Chakravarti told me this, is from the Mahabharatic version of the story of Shakuntala, which differs dramatically from Kalidasa's version of Shakuntala. In the Mahabharata version of Shakuntala, it's a very short story there. Shakuntala does not lose the ring, and the fisherman doesn't find it. She is left behind by the Dushmanta, the king, and she decides to go to the king, to the darbar, in the court of the king, and claim her rights as a wife with her child. She goes to him, and the king has forgotten all about it. She disowns her, and Shakuntala is about to leave the court and moves, and there is a divine voice saying from the top, Bharata, says to the king, Bharata, take care of him. That is the other meaning of Bharata, and Arindam claims that that is the origin of this country. Take care of them. This is one of the major principles of this part of the world, and I like to believe that we will at least think of it once in a while, at least in the privacy of our home. Thank you very much for your attention.